Hi, this is Bill, and this is Progpaganda. Over the course of the last 50 years and change, I've gotten into many discussions with friends about the role of Led Zeppelin in the progressive rock movement, or indeed whether they even had one. There are people on the extreme edge of the spectrum that will argue even today that
Led Zeppelin weren't a prog band, they were a blues band.
And they certainly were, at least in the early days, primarily blues influenced. That is certainly true. Led Zeppelin were, however, the preeminent band of the 1970s, both in terms of record sales and in terms of touring success. And they were very shrewd businessmen. They recorded for Atlantic Records, the same label as did Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson, and Roxy Music, to name just a few. And because of that relationship, they were keenly aware of the success that those bands were having. Over the course of the years 1972 through 1976, it would have been foolish for Led Zeppelin to ignore that success, and also foolish for them not to put their own toe in the water with regard to exploring different musical styles. And indeed, Led Zeppelin did. In this episode, we're going to review several of the songs that Led Zeppelin did that, at least to my ears, had a progressive rock flavor to them. You're, of course, welcome to argue or debate whether those songs of Zeppelin's are hardcore prog rock or not. Feel free to let me know in the comments, and, well, let the games begin. Led Zeppelin's first two albums, of course, were very much blues-flavored, but starting with their third album in 1970, they began to add additional colors to their musical palette. On Led Zeppelin III, the songs Friends and Out on the Tiles in particular began evidencing some of their influences from various directions. The song Friends puts on display Jimmy Page's interest in folk rock forms, in particular in the music that people like Bert Jansch and Richard Thompson were pursuing back in that time frame. Out on the Tiles is a showcase for John Bonham. John Bonham was a terrific drummer. His style was, of course, very different from those of, for example, Bill Bruford, Phil Collins, or Neil Peart. He didn't pursue the technical directions that those drummers often did. But Bonham had a great sense of groove and knew how to place accents in interesting places to make a song memorable and to provide a terrific underpinning for what Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones were doing in the construction of a song. The prog influence really began to show itself full bore on Led Zeppelin's great fourth album. Songs like The Battle of Evermore, performed with Fairport Convention's Sandy Denny, Four Sticks, and of course Stairway to Heaven, display Led Zeppelin's creativity in a very big way. Four Sticks, in particular, with its interesting backbeat and use of synthesizers, is, to my ears, undeniably a progressive rock song. The trend continued with Led Zeppelin's fifth album, Houses of the Holy. Out of the gate, the song Remains the Same shows progressive rock influence in terms of its shifting time signatures and the many guitar overdubs that Page used to create the song's unique sound. The song that follows the song Remains the Same on the album, the Rain Song, continues in a different vein, but nevertheless a progressive one, with Page employing a unique guitar tuning and John Paul Jones integrating a mellotron string section within the song's bridge. Finally, No Quarter, on side 2 of the album, is a prog rock powerhouse, with Jones employing synthesizers and John Bonham again employing a very unique use of drum accents in order to create the song's groove. Led Zeppelin's sixth album, Physical Graffiti, continued the trend. Their epic song Kashmir is on this album, and again, that one is a song that John Bonham dominates to the point where he's given the primary co-writing credit on the track. John Bonham's drum track, while it's somewhat repetitive, is hypnotically so. It draws the listener in a way that is very unique and which helps to make the song, over the course of its 8.5 minutes, really compelling. John Paul Jones adds to the texture through his use of keyboards, particularly the mellotron on the song as well. Jones makes a huge contribution to Led Zeppelin's progressive rock credentials with In the Light, the song which follows Kashmir on the album. In the Light makes very inventive use of synthesizers and shifting rhythms. Last but not least, there's 10 Years Gone, which is not a prog rock song as far as its instrumentation, but which employs shifting time signatures and shifting rhythms in a very inventive way. It's arguably one of the best songs, at least to my ears, that Led Zeppelin ever constructed. The lead-off track of Led Zeppelin's ensuing album, Presence, is Achilles' Last Stand, which is a progressive rock monster, full of shifting time signatures, shifting rhythms. Interestingly, like The Song Remains the Same, without keyboards, but with many, many overdubs of guitars. One might almost consider Achilles as The Song Remains the Same, but now on steroids. It's double the length at 10.5 minutes, and employs many of the same techniques to brilliant effect. The legend is that Jimmy Page recorded all of the overdubs for Achilles' Last Stand in a single session over the course of about 16 hours. If he did that, that might have been among the most productive 16 hours in rock and roll history. And it certainly was influential, so much so that within a matter of months, Nancy Wilson and Roger Fisher of Heart would borrow the riff somewhat shamelessly to construct their song, Barracuda. Finally, on Led Zeppelin's last studio album, In Through the Outdoor, we have two more prog rock influence tunes. The first is the first song on the album, In the Evening, which features, again, Jimmy Page employing multiple guitar overdubs and effects, perhaps most notably in the song's introduction, the use of Lal Cream's invention, the Gizmotron. And then there's John Paul Jones's masterpiece, Cara Salambra, which makes use of the Yamaha GX1 synthesizer, the instrument of choice for Keith Emerson at the time, in order to construct a song in 3 movements, over 10.5 minutes worth of shifting time signatures, shifting rhythms, and very, very memorable music. That's my view of Led Zeppelin and their contribution to the progressive rock space. You're welcome to disagree, as I said. I'm curious to know what your opinions are. Please feel free to post your comments. If you like this episode, if you like what you've heard and would like to join in the debate, please click on like for the video, and of course, please subscribe to the channel so that we can continue to share these types of debates and discussions. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.